Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Yes, smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. And a very warm welcome to Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Pre-production on James Gunn's written and directed Superman Legacy has begun, and the director announced this yesterday on Superman's anniversary day. How exciting is that? We're going to read what James had to say very shortly. And finally, this huge interview between Zack Snyder and Joe and Anthony Russo, part one of that interview, has come out online. And it's very, very interesting. I don't think it's utterly controversial, but we'll get into it a little bit later on. So lots of stuff to get through today on Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. So yes, James Gunn yesterday on Superman Day, announced that pre-production on Superman Legacy is well underway, and this is what he had to say. I'm honoured to be a part of the legacy, and what better day than Superman Anniversary Day to dive fully into early pre-production on Superman Legacy. Costumes, production design, and more now up and running. So that's very, very exciting, everyone. Now, as you know, I have my concerns about James Gunn writing and directing a Superman movie, but I'm a huge Superman fan, as you know. Now, because I was too young to follow the productions of Superman 1 to 4, I was so eager to follow every moment of the production of Superman Returns. Oh my God, that was the height of my Superman obsession. I mean, I'm still obsessed with Superman, but back then we had Smallville, which I was already obsessed with. And knowing they were making a Superman movie, while a Superman TV show was active, was very, very exciting. I bought every issue of Total Film back then, of Empire, and I was following the production. I was obsessed with Bryan Singer. I know, someone admitting they were obsessed with Bryan Singer. I was, because he was going to direct a movie about a character that I adored. So I was very, very excited. People always ask me, you were so hyped up for Superman Returns. Did it fall flat for you once you saw the movie? No, it didn't. I really enjoyed Superman Returns. I wasn't disappointed that it wasn't full of action. It was a sequel to Superman 2, a film I grew up watching. It was part of the Donnerverse, and I was excited by it. I was excited by the Easter eggs. I was also excited by the new direction the film was going in. And one of my deepest regrets as a Superman fan and a film fan and a fan of Bryan Singer's work is that Superman Man of Steel, the sequel to Superman Returns, never happened, because we were going to get Brainiac, and I think that Bryan would have ironed out all the kinks from the first movie. Absolute tragedy. So I loved Superman Returns, so I will be following all the aspects of the production of Superman Legacy, because I love Superman, and we're going to cover it on this channel. Absolutely, we're going to cover the shit out of Superman Legacy on this channel. You will not miss a beat, and I think that's very, very important. So when I hear the writer-director of the upcoming Superman movie saying that pre-production has started, of course, I get very, very excited, because we should be getting pictures from James on costumes, things like that. Now, pre-production is exactly what it says on the tin. It's prior to the actual production. So production hasn't started, pre-production has started. And there's a difference, my friends. So pre-production is prep for the actual production. So this is why they're going to be designing sets and the costumes, because obviously you need the sets, you need the costumes to go into production. So I think you get where I'm going with this. So this is not actually the production, but considering we're now in pre-production. Now, this isn't interesting for you. Has James been economical with his casting truth? Has he actually done most of his important casting? Or, has he yet to start casting his main characters in the movie? Well, here's a little clue for you, right? I write, direct, and star in my own plays here in Cyprus. Yeah, we know, Mick. You tell us all the time. I know. But there's a reason. I'm going to qualify why I'm telling you this. So, obviously, when we design costumes, because my plays are original stories, so I design all the costumes as well. So we need to know something very boring but very important: the size of the bloody actor. So we can't actually make the final costumes until we know the actors. And I'm talking males, females, whatever, right? So if they're starting to design costumes, of course you can design costumes without knowing the size of the specific sizes, but they're heading there into designing the costumes. So sooner rather than later, they're going to need to know who's going to be wearing these costumes and outfits. So I've said for a while now, I believe James Gunn knows exactly who's going to be his Superman, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe they're going to do a huge casting call. They did it with Superman Returns. Bryan Singer didn't have a specific idea who should play Superman. He certainly knew they should look like Christopher Reeve. You see, people say Brandon Routh looks like Christopher Reeve. Actually, Christopher Reeve just looked like Superman, didn't he? Let's be honest about it. He looked like Superman, so it wasn't rocket science to cast someone who looked like Chris. Obviously, it was a sequel of Superman 2, so he kind of needed to look like Chris. I'm not sure if Brandon actually looked like Chris. The costume. I think that costume made Brandon look smaller and shorter than he actually is, and I think that was a mistake. I don't hate the costume, I just think the costume reduced and diluted the way the actor looked on screen, and that was a shame. But that's an exciting thing now. Will Superman be wearing the red trunks, or won't he be wearing the red trunks? I think that James Gunn's ideas and concepts for Superman are going to be very, very traditional. They saw what the Snyderverse did and the controversies and, the diverse reactions, and not the diverse reactions, the divisive reactions to those films that I absolutely adore, by the way. So I think they're going to go the opposite to Zack. I think we will be going for the red trunks, and I think we will be going very, very traditional in terms of what we do with Superman Legacy. Now, James Gunn has also confirmed that Jimmy Olsen will be in Superman Legacy. No shit, Sherlock. We knew this was going to happen. As I say, he's going to go in a very traditional comic book direction. Now, this is interesting because he was answering questions about getting notes from the studio. He said he doesn't mind getting notes. Interesting. But he said he writes his scripts and he gives them to comic book writer Tom King to see if he's getting it right. Now, I like this because Tom King is a comic book writer. Now, maybe he's not the one he should be consulting with in terms of kind of people's political opinions, but he does know his stuff. So what he's doing, he's giving the scripts and saying, am I getting it right now? So it's interesting and it's a good thing to basically say to someone who's immersed in the comic book universe, am I getting this character right? Am I getting it on the page? Am I missing any details that fans may be angry about? So this is the direction we're going in. A Superman movie made for Superman fans. And I think this is why we're going to go down a very traditional route. Now, I'm extremely happy that James Gunn has confirmed that Jimmy Olsen will be in this movie, because to some people, Jimmy isn't very important. Because most people, non-comic book readers, by the way, miss the point of Jimmy. And I've mentioned this on my channel on numerous occasions. Jimmy Olsen is like the companion in Doctor Who. Basically, he's our way into the story. If you're a young boy or a young girl and you're seeing a school leaver start his first day at the Daily Planet, he becomes best friends with Clark Kent, then discovers Clark Kent is Superman, and they become best pals. That's like you and me becoming Superman's best pal. And this is why Jimmy Olsen is really important. And there's a really close relationship there between this young school leaver and the greatest hero in the universe. And that's why Jimmy Olsen is brilliant. And if anyone can get this element and this tonal element of the Superman comics right, it's James Gunn. These are the kind of things that are actually James Gunn's strengths, making likable characters. Now, as I say, I do have my concerns about him writing and directing a Superman movie. We saw the first clip of Guardians where where Peter Quill's having this lovely chat, right? With the green lady, I forgot her name, right, who he's in love with, but it's a different version of her if you remember. And it's getting really deep, then all of a sudden they go into a gag. He always breaks a serious moment off with gags. And in a way, it takes away from that moment. It feels frustrating. It's like when you're talking and someone puts their hand over your mouth, right? It hasn't happened to me, but you can imagine how frustrating that can be. This is the kind of thing I don't want to see in Superman Legacy. I hope he isn't a one-trick pony, but this is why I'm concerned about him writing and directing a Superman movie, because there's a place for gags in a Superman movie. There absolutely is, but you've got to get that raw emotion from this character as well. Is James Gunn capable of doing this? I think maybe this is why he's taking some advice and getting notes from Tom King. So I think he realizes he needs all the help he can get, but he is a good writer and he's a really good director. But is he the best director that a Superman movie could have got? That's the question I've been asking. I don't think that he is, but I do like him. He is passionate about these characters, and going forward, I'm going to have an open mind on James Gunn writing and directing Superman Legacy, because I'm excited we're finally getting a Superman movie. Does that mean I suddenly agree with the removal of Henry Cavill? No, because I understand why Henry isn't in the Central Universe, but he could have easily been moved on to DC Elseworlds, as I said yesterday. There was no reason to completely move him on. But we are in pre-production of Superman Legacy. It's going to be a very, very exciting movie, and we're going to hear castings of Lex Luthor, who haven't been confirmed yet, but Lex will be in the movie. Jimmy Olsen, let's see who they cast, Lois Lane, and of course Superman, Clark Kent. I'm sure Jor-El will be there somewhere, as well Jonathan, Martha. I'm very excited for not just the pre-production of this movie, the production, the trailers, the gossip, the reveals. It's going to be brilliant, and we're not going to miss a trick of the production journey of Superman Legacy here on Movies TV Mad. So Zack Snyder had his interview with the Russos, but it's only part one. Part two is to come. Now, this interview was over an hour long, and you can check it out on YouTube. It was brilliant. And, we got a couple of interesting revelations. Now, this is stuff that Zack's already told us, but it was very interesting. I will say, I've got a much better opinion of the Russos after I've seen this interview than before I saw this interview. Very, very good guys. I really love the motivations of doing these pizza interviews as well, trying to help, younger directors or directors trying to get into the industry who can't afford film schools, and learning techniques from directors. So it's all very pure, but it's a very good interview. And Zack Snyder talks about how Justice League was supposed to be a darker movie, and the studio wanted gags. They wanted it to be lighter and funnier, so Zack had no choice but to do that. Personally, I would have loved to have seen Zack's darker movie. He also reiterated the point that him and Chris Terrio were planning on having a romance between Bruce Wayne and Lois Lane once Superman died at the end of Batman vs. Superman. Now, I'm not sure if I'm correct here. Wasn't she supposed to fall pregnant with his child, right? I think Darkseid kills her. I think that's the whole idea. So the Russos were very, very interested in this idea, very supportive. They clearly love Zack Snyder. The timing of this interview is very interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if the Russos have seen Rebel Moon. Do you remember how Zack used to be ostracized? And none of these big-name directors came out, to stand alongside Zack. It was us, the fans, who backed him, not these directors. Isn't it interesting all of a sudden the Russos want to be seen with Zack Snyder? Warner Brothers and James Gunn are singing the man's praises all of a sudden. All these elites are saying, oh, Zack Snyder's a pioneering director, as the Russos did on bloody camera. This proves that all these people have seen Rebel Moon and they know it's going to be a big hit. What a shame it's on streaming and it won't be on the big screen, because that's where Zack Snyder movies deserve to be. Now, personally, you see, I'm not resolute on canon on anything. So someone like Snyder had his own ideas on what to do with these characters. That's the difference between what we were saying earlier about what James Gunn's going to do with Superman Legacy. Zack took these characters and did what he wanted to do with them. So I wasn't opposed to this. Now, Zack's whole idea, as he said to the Russos, was to try and do a Pearl Harbor situation where someone has died, or you think they're dead and they're not coming back. You're lonely, two lonely people, the friend of the person and the spouse of the person, and they fall in love. And then the person comes back and it creates drama and it complicates the issue. I think it would have been a very, very compelling, interesting thing to do. Now, there's a lot of DC fans who think this is terrible, this wouldn't work. And they wouldn't let Zack do it because they thought it was a terrible idea, they thought it was a controversial idea. But not all controversial things are bad things, everyone. I think this would have been a very, very good thing and an interesting thing and an experimental thing. And I think, yeah, it would have been very, very interesting. Also, by doing this, once Lois is murdered by Darkseid and the Nightmare Future begins, then you'll see Batman as wounded, as Superman emotionally, where Batman has decided to take the hero's route. So he's damaged, a bit of a Jack Bauer if you like, damaged but still a hero, where Superman obviously, it hasn't chosen to become this monstrous person. He's under the control of the anti-life equation and Darkseid. And so it will be very, very interesting. But this is, I think Zack Snyder is a man of very interesting ideas. And yeah, I think that would have been really, really good. Now, it's interesting because Zack didn't really go back and speak about a lot of the negative vibes from Justice League and BVS and, the shit he got from the studio. So, it was kept really, really positive because basically this is a YouTube channel from two elite directors trying to inspire other people to get into the industry. So it's a very, very pure thing that the Russos are doing here. And I'm very grateful to them, as all Zack Snyder fans are, that they brought Zack on. They were complimenting him. It was a fascinating hour plus of discussions between the directors. They spoke about how Hollywood, it's clear to see why they left the MCU. It's clear to see why they work with Netflix now, right? Because they seem a bit worn down by this industry. They were talking about Hollywood always being behind the curve with trends, saying if you give people ice cream 5 days a week, they're going to throw it back at you on the 6th day. In other words, just because something's a trend, you shouldn't keep doing it. And I think they were alluding to WB asking Zack to make Justice League more funny. Now, what the Russos were saying, and I'm not sure which one's Joe and which one's Anthony, sorry boys, but they were just, they were saying that audiences want different things. They want to be challenged. And, I thought that he was absolutely right about this. And yes, Hollywood are always behind the curve. And it's the people ahead of the curve, of course, are us. Because we don't always know what exactly we want from our entertainment, but we know when we get it. We didn't ask for a Silence of the Lambs movie, but we loved it. We didn't ask for The Accused movie, but we loved it. We didn't ask for Dead Ringers, Casualties of War. Nobody asked for The Godfather, right? But we didn't know we wanted something that we wanted. That's the point. So that's what you've got to be pioneers as an industry and create variety and visionary filmmakers and storytellers. So it was very, very fascinating to listen to the Russos talk to Zack, and it's clear that the Russos are not really fans of the mainstream industry. I think something untoward happened between them, Disney or Kevin Feige, because they weren't happy by the end of Endgame, and that's clear. I think they're more proud of Infinity War, as they should be, than they are of Endgame. And I hope they do direct Brave and the Bold, because these are two brilliant, pioneering directors. They're not extremists. I like them. It will be great to have them at DC. As I say, I don't know if James Gunn's DC universe is going to be successful. We will wait and see. And Zack, when the Russos said, I'd like to see that in Justice League 2, the romance between Lois and Batman, and, you know, and Zack goes, maybe one day. And obviously the Snyder fans are getting excited and proving a point that Zack hasn't moved on. Well, unless you're stupid, you already know that Zack hasn't moved on. So next Tuesday is the 25th of April, a very big day for DC fans and Flash fans. Not only are we getting a brand new spanking second trailer of the Flash movie, the movie will be shown in its entirety at CinemaCon. Now, just to give you an example of Warner Brothers' confidence on this movie, their confidence, not mine, but theirs, just to make that clear, Top Gun Maverick was also shown at CinemaCon before it was released nationwide and globally in theatres. So this is a very big deal. WB are very excited about the Flash movie, and they're expecting people at CinemaCon to love this movie. Now, for us, the fans who can't be there and can't see it, it's a very huge moment. You may get some leaks and spoilers, so be careful, but the biggest thing is, and why I'm excited about this event, we're going to get people's reactions, because we know that people are going to come out in a non-spoilery kind of way and give us their reactions on the finished movie, because this will be the finished movie. It's not like the test screening I saw. And don't forget, the test screening I saw was ages ago. They've changed that film on multiple occasions since then. These people get to see the finished article. Am I jealous? Of course I damn well are. I really want to see the theatrical cut of this movie, and I can't wait to sit in a movie theatre and watch this. It's going to be a very exciting movie, hopefully. It's the movie that Warner Brothers think it's going to be, because I want it to be great. I finally want a DC movie that's in kind of the DCEU. I want the DCEU to get a good finale. Obviously, this really isn't a finale because we're still getting Blue Beetle. Now, if you stay with me to the end of the video, I'm going to talk about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. That film seems to be in a lot of trouble, and it's on Zaslav's to-do list, and we'll discuss that very shortly on some secretive information I found out about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. But yeah, we got Blue Beetle coming up after the Flash movie, but the Flash movie is a big deal. So Discovery and Zaslav and WB really think they can make, Spider-Man No Way Home money out of this film. They really like this film. James Gunn genuinely likes this film, right? There's a difference between James Gunn going, oh, Blue Beetle's going to be a really good fun movie, but he really likes the Flash movie. Apparently Tom Cruise really likes the Flash movie. So when you're showing this to, pundits and different people at CinemaCon, whoever goes to CinemaCon, I'm not sure who goes there, but for them to show the entire movie to these people, they have to be confident about it. So they are confident about this movie. So it'll be interesting. Will they see better CGI than we've seen in the trailers so far? Will the CGI be even more perfected to what they see at CinemaCon? I have no idea. By the way, I don't think the CGI where it's bad, where we've seen in the trailers, because most of the CGI is beautiful. Let's be clear about that. Now, the close-up on Batfleck's face wasn't great, but it also wasn't a disaster. But ultimately, people are going to focus on these negatives. This is where we are in fandom. DC fandom is splintered in different directions. And there's some people who are going to try and find any negative trait to try and stop people from watching the movie. It's been a thing since Zack Snyder was pushed out of the DCEU. And his fans will continue to push back but you're an individual. Make up your own mind. Now, nobody is ever stopping me from seeing a DC movie and having an honest opinion about a DC movie. Now, what's great about me, I'm not from a certain part of the DC fandom. I'm an all-round DC fan who loves DC and wants DC to work, wants DC to be successful. But when I see something, I will be honest. So I don't come from a bias. I just want to see great DC content. So we need to be clear about that as many times as possible, so you know that I'm not necessarily going to come from your bias. I'm going to tell you what I think of the Flash movie when I see the completed version of this movie. But we will get reactions after people have seen it at CinemaCon, and that's something I'm very, very excited about. Will people come out of CinemaCon and give it good reactions? Now, we know that these days it's all about access, right? I'm assuming Access Media will be able to be at CinemaCon to see it. I'm sure this is who's going to get to see this movie, and I'm sure it's not average fans, right? I'm assuming maybe there'll be a few fans there, with huge platforms maybe, but this is all about access, right? So I don't get this type of access. So it's interesting. So if you're Access Media, do you just say nice things? Are you just going to say the things that they want you to say? Or are you going to be honest about this movie? So we have to be careful about the reactions we see. So I will have to judge the reactions we get from CinemaCon showing the Flash movie. If it's all 100%, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and they all say the same thing, we know that WB have given them a script and basically they're taking their medicine so they continue to get access. But if I get a variety of opinions, whether they're a variety of positive opinions or a mixture of negative and positive, then I know they're genuine opinions, and that's the big difference, because this is where we are today, boys and girls. We can't trust journalism. Journalism was invented to inform us, whether it's current affairs or entertainment. These days, we don't get informed. We get sold propaganda. I mean, look at the Mary Sue. I mean, they're the biggest propaganda group of journalists I've ever seen in my life. But Access Media is even worse because they want to get access, right? We should live in a society where I can, if I'm a member of Access Media, which I'm not, I'm going to say, right, thank you, Warner Brothers or Disney, for allowing me to have an early screening of your film, but I hope you understand. The best thing for you and for me and for everyone, the fans, is if I'm honest about what I see. Please don't encourage me, and please don't encourage me to say things and spin things. And if I'm not going to get access because I'm not going to spin the narrative, then I don't get access. Because if the only way, this is where I'm coming from, if the only way to get to see a film like the Flash movie early is to spin the narrative, then I'd rather not have access. I'd rather wait to watch the theatrical cut of the movie with you guys and girls. That's what I would rather do. I don't want access if it means sacrificing who I am. And I think that's what's important as well, everyone. It's about honesty. It's about integrity. Now, the people who don't have this integrity, who say, oh my God, this is the best movie ever, like they did about Wonder Woman 84, when we know Wonder Woman 84, and Birds of Prey, which got a high verified critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, wasn't the best movie ever. They lied for access. They lied because of who was being represented in the Birds of Prey movie. And that's the issue. So basically, we cannot trust Access Media. That doesn't mean I'm not excited to hear their reactions of the movie. But ultimately in life, the only way to be informed, if you're passionate about movies, if you're intrigued about what this Flash movie is going to be like, just go and watch it. And you're thinking, yeah, but I don't want to give WB the money. Well, if you're not informed about something, you can't have an opinion about something, right? Now, you can have an opinion about a trailer and what you see in a trailer, but whether a movie's good or not, unless you've got an informed opinion, you don't really have a right to that opinion. You have a right to an opinion when you're informed about what you're talking about. And that's the point. So I'm excited as a DC fan, but I'm also want to go there so I know what I'm talking about. So I can't wait to see this movie, and I can't wait to next Tuesday to see what people start saying about the Flash movie. This has been Wednesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Smash the like button if you love me. Please have your say. Subscribe if you're new, and I will see you again tomorrow. When I see you again, we will say hello all over again. I will blow you kisses, and we'll do this all over again. Until I see you then, goodbye.